Hi everyone, welcome back to Expat Life Mexico. This is Michelle. I am here to help you either travel or move to San Miguel de Allende or Mexico smoother. Today we're going to talk about banking, and we're going to talk about credit cards. We're going to talk about money. We can talk a little bit about the exchange rate and everything you need to know about how to maneuver around and have currency in your wallet, pesos in your wallet, US dollars in your wallet, whatever it is, to help you take care of the things that you want to buy, pay for, just in general. Okay, so let's jump right into it. So I wanted to talk about banking in general. It can be a little cumbersome, and again, this is all about the experiences that I have, and I'm here to share those with you. So today I'm going to talk about my experience with a local bank, why it's a pro to bank there, and also why there are challenges about banking there. So the bank that I use was actually referred to me by the guy who shipped my things from Florida to San Miguel back in 2018. So I've been here for almost 5 years. And at that time, I didn't really have a plan for how was I going to pay for rent. I really didn't know if I qualified to open a bank account. The process here is a little bit different, and I just didn't know. I really had not gotten to that yet. Well, anyway, this gentleman referred me to one of the local banks. It's called C Banco, and that's C, small I, capital BANCO. And the benefit about banking with C Banco so far, for me, the greatest benefit has been that I can actually write out a US check and deposit it into my Mexican account without being charged fees. So just imagine that you lived in Mexico for 5 years, and in those 5 years you're paying fees every single month, right? Those fees can add up depending on your bank, depending on who it is. I know that there is Schwab in the United States that does reimburse foreign transaction fees and things like that, and ATM fees in other countries, but we'll get to that later. But as of right now, I use C Banco, and it's been pretty much good to me overall. When I first moved here, all I had to show was my tourist visa, my passport, and a local utility bill for the address that I was living at. Now, I don't know if those things have changed in the interim. I'm not sure if you can still open a bank account with only a tourist visa. So that's not something that I am updated on, but I'm just letting you know what I did. And C Banco would certainly have those generic questions kind of ready for you. But the process was very, very slow. And as I mentioned in one of my other videos, that having a lot of patience in Mexico is vital for your mental health, okay? Because some things just take a while. So all I can recall is that I had to bring a lot of paperwork or sign a lot of paperwork. The deposit that I had to make wasn't very high. I want to say it was somewhere around 100 US dollars to get it started. And there were no crazy fees, and then they have limits of how much you can take out of the ATM machine per day in pesos, which is not a lot. I think you can take out up to 6,000 pesos a day at the ATM machine, and that kind of equates to close to $300. Right now the exchange rate is very, very different than it was in 2 years ago. I won't say 2018. It's around what it was in 2018 right now. So if you don't know, the Mexican peso as of March 12th, 2023 is quite strong, and so things have shifted in terms of what you get for your US dollar. So always have an app or so maybe where you can kind of compare what does something cost, and would you pay that amount in the United States for that item. And if it's a resounding heck yeah, then go ahead and get it. But one of the things that I notice with the ATM machine is it always asks you, do you want to convert this, and do you want to accept their conversion? That's always a no for me, always a no. And a lot of people who have this experience will tell you when you go to convert money via their ATM, they're going to give you less. So it's always better to just decline that, and I'll explain that a little bit better. So what I want to say is the opening of the account really wasn't that hard. I want to say I gave them cash. I don't remember, but I believe after you open it, then it becomes very simple for you to write a U.S. check if you want from a U.S. account, and it could be Bank of America, Chase, or any of these banks, and in the U.S., and they will accept your U.S. check and deposit it into your Mexican bank account, and you will then receive pesos. You're not going to receive US dollars, and I don't know why like this sometimes, not to say hard to grasp, but people somehow think that they can go to the ATM machine and get US dollars. No, you're going to get pesos, okay? Unless that machine specifically says you can get US dollars, you're going to get Mexican pesos. If you give someone US dollars to pay for something, let's say that's all you have, you're traveling and you're just moving around and you get change, you're going to get change in US pesos, right? They're not walking with currency in US dollars to give to you. So just kind of keeping that in mind. Now, there are some parts of Mexico, like the resorts in Cancun, that you probably will get US dollars, or they have more currency in US available, but in central Mexico where we are, it's not really something that you're going to get at all. I know there's one ATM machine in City Market that I'm aware of that will dispense US dollars, but for a very high fee. I want to say the fee is around 28 US dollars for the transaction. So clearly, if you really need it, then you can go there and get it. If, let's say, you're here, you need US dollars because you're landing in the US and, I don't know, you want to have some US dollars to travel with, then clearly you can do that. I know the banks will exchange pesos and get you US dollars. I don't know how long that takes because I've never done it, but that is also an option. Clearly, you're going to get, you know, the lowest fees, the lowest exchange rate. So that's just, you know, stuff for you to keep in mind when you come here. And if you plan to either stay here for a while or live here, it's always a good idea to maybe have some US dollars just on hand, and, you know, in case you need it. I know when I travel, I always have, like, you know, some money on hand that I can take with me, and I already have it and I don't have to worry about it. It's enough to get me to an ATM in the airport wherever I land in the United States, but it's just something to think about. So with the banking, it was pretty easy in general, and I think it still is. It's just kind of the whole process takes a while in terms of going in. It's not what we're used to, and I say this all the time, walk with grace. When you go to the bank in the US, it's just a little faster. Sometimes it does take a while, kind of depends on the account that you're setting up, but here it's like a slower process. You know, you don't have a social security thing where they plug it in, they, you know, do a credit check and all that other stuff. It's just a lot of paperwork. I had to sign so many pages, and you have to sign exactly the way you sign in your official documents. So for example, they pretty much only use your passport, and you can also use your residency card, but they pretty much will only use your passport, and they'll enter all of that into their system. And you have to sign every page the exact same way that you signed your passport. So it's always good to make sure you have your passport, make sure you have maybe some other form of ID, and if you're living in a rental unit or you bought a house, you need to bring a utility bill. For some reason, utility bills are like, you know, gods around here, and people have to bring that piece of info to maybe start an internet account, to open a bank account, to get an RFC. An RFC is kind of like a local tax, personal tax ID, so you pay taxes on things that are applicable to you in your life if you buy or sell something. I think you have to if you have a business, things like that. So that will be another video. Not everyone needs one right off as soon as you step foot in Mexico, but it is good to have that if you plan to be here long term, and there are people who can help you with obtaining that as well. So in regard to just even having a ATM card, it takes a while. But I've gone through like the full cycle right now where I had to renew my ATM card, and I didn't realize that it was expiring like within the next couple of weeks. I think it was expiring at the end of next month, and I just happened to call my bank about something else, and then I don't know why, but I pulled it out maybe for identifying something, and I saw that it was going to be expiring soon. And the card I have, it's not sturdy. So maybe 1 or 2 years in of having it in my wallet, out of my wallet, into the ATM, back into my wallet, the numbers faded, like everything was just like really not done well. So I had to literally save those numbers into my phone so that I was able to use them if I ever needed them. So I don't really use that account for purchasing things online. I assume you can, but I've used it very rarely to pay for like my son's materials at school, because usually the school will like kind of contract with another company that's going to provide all the materials for the school for that school year. And I believe I used it and it worked okay. But I feel like I tried to use it for something else and it didn't work. I don't know. And this could just be that particular bank. I know that Santander, there's like Citi Banamex, which I think is a part of Citi Bank here in the U.S. and or worldwide, and then here in Mexico. And there's other like BBVA, and there's Bank Norte. There's a variety of other banks that you can actually probably get more reliability from, but I think a lot of foreigners tend to use Cibanco, which is also national. They have 2 here in San Miguel, and I think Intercom, but I don't use the other banks, so I'm not going to talk about them. But what I wanted to say is, overall, like, the service is very friendly, at least here in San Miguel. A lot of the women that I've worked with, and even a gentleman that was there initially, they speak English, so they're able to kind of really clearly explain things to you in general. There are so many like things that are very different, and I think this is like to prevent fraud. For example, if you want to change US dollars or any other currency that's not the Mexican peso, if you go to the window, you'll get like a lower rate. But if you go to so-and-so sitting at this desk, it's not labeled, but you just have to know this and they'll tell you, then they'll give you a better rate if you have an account with the bank. And then you take that paper that they print out and then you walk to the window and you give it to them. So it almost feels like within Cibanco, each department kind of operates very individually. And I think that's like a fraud prevention kind of step, or reasons why they do that. It's sort of like this one person is responsible for all the ATM cards, and then this one person is responsible for depositing US checks, and then this other one person is responsible for updating your info in the system, and this other person is responsible for just giving money or whatever. So it's sort of like it kind of holds that person accountable, as opposed to if maybe something happens, you can finger point. There's less opportunity to finger point. That's what I get from it. No one told me this officially, but that's my understanding, because they all kind of do something very different. So if you go to a bank and you open an account here, just understand who does what and what you need for your services and things like that. So what's challenging for me? Online banking. I resisted online banking for a while because it was in Spanish, and I did not know that Google Chrome I've known now for a few years, but initially I did not know that Google Chrome browser will translate pretty much any website or page for you to the language that is your native language. So for me, clearly English, and I use it often when I'm going in to pay my bills. And they do have online banking services here. It's a little frustrating because you have to kind of think ahead. It's one of those things where in Mexico, you have to think ahead. You got to kind of set it up. You got to kind of test it to make sure, like, okay, that person got the money. When I'm paying someone, I always take like a screenshot with my phone, and then I'll send them a message and say, hey, I paid this, and they're like, yeah, I got it. And I'm like, okay, cool, it worked. Because there are just certain things that are a little glitchy here that give me pause. So I'm not always comfortable or confident using them, but I still use them. And so far I haven't had any issues. However, because there are a lot of other challenges, for example, after a super mega busy weekend, or just often, the ATM machines aren't working. And it's not just my bank. It's just kind of like, there's not like this function where, okay, if it's down, it's only down for a little bit. It's sort of like down for 24 hours or the next day. They're just like weird things that sometimes will give you pause, right? And you don't always understand what that thing is because maybe you don't clearly understand what the message that popped up on the screen says because it's in Spanish. So, all of these like factors I like to talk about because, they might frustrate you and you may be like, because I've worked with, people that came to San Miguel, walked into, the ATM machine, and it can be awkward because one, it's your money. All of the ATM machines here in San Miguel, they all offer everything in English, but it's kind of like when you see it either with Spanish on top and little tiny English on the bottom, if the machine doesn't offer you full clear, press this button to get only English or whatever. Like my bank, it's like dual language for every step. And it's just like weird things, like it's just weird stuff. So, it's just kind of like things that don't make sense, but then you just kind of figure out how it works. And I think that that's always, for me, the key is going with a little caution with what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, making sure like I don't have, like tens of thousands of dollars, US dollars in a Mexican account, not to say you can't, I just don't. I feel like I put in what I need to pay, if I need to put in more because I have more expenses for the month or I need more pesos for the month, then I will, right? So in saying that, it's just a lot of really weird, glitchy things that happen with Banco sometimes. Again, I don't have extensive experience with other local banks, so I'm not going to say that this is all banks. No, it's not. So please hear that. It's not all banks. It's just some. Times I experience a lot of really weird kind of things online. For example, setting up a payee, it's sort of like you have to put in, like, for example, how many times a month are you going to pay this person? Is it one time a month? Is it going to be 2 times a month? And then like what's the maximum amount that you would ever pay that person? And then it's like, and then the maximum operation, it's just like all these little weird things. And sometimes just trying to enter a new payee can then become a little bit daunting because it's sort of like, okay, but these 2 questions almost are the same. And then you get all the way to the end, and then they have like this dynamic, they call it a dynamic key code. So with a dynamic key code, every single thing you do online banking, not necessarily on your mobile phone, but online, has like a key code. So in the moment when they're asking for that dynamic key code, you press it and whatever code comes up, it's kind of like, when Google sends you a code and then you got to enter it, or any of these platforms send you a code, you got to enter it. But it's like each time, then I got to enter it to see if it goes through. And then after I enter payee, then it takes another 30 minutes or so or more for maybe someone to approve it in the office somewhere. And then you can pay someone. So give yourself time for that. Like, don't think, because I know in the US we can, at least from what I remember, you can enter payee immediately, like on Zelle or whatever, and it goes through, right? Sometimes. I can't say all the time because Zelle's also kind of finicky. But give it at least, like if you have to pay your landlord in 2 weeks, set it up right away. Give it some time to kind of do its thing. I'm not saying don't get a Mexican account because I really think it's convenient. I like keeping an account here in case I need my card or whatever. Like I can put money in it and it's just like I go to the grocery store, then I don't always have to whip out my US credit card, even though I've never had an issue. Actually, no, I have, but it wasn't necessarily because I was here in Mexico. Someone tried to charge like literally 12,000 US dollars on one of my credit cards about a year ago, buying some trading cards. So I think it was just, one of those weird fluky situations. It didn't happen in Mexico. But my point is that, it's harder to get replacement cards here. You can get them. So we'll talk about that as well in a second. But I say if you can, and if you have a local account, it's always a good idea to have a debit card here at the very least. Now, let's talk about the credit card situation really quickly. Now, on the US side, if you decide that you want to have a credit card here, make sure you're not getting charged foreign transaction fees. I have a Chase Sapphire, which will basically let me use my card abroad, and I don't get charged a foreign transaction fee every time I use it, right? That's important because those fees add up very quickly. Again, you can also opt to get a card here, an ATM card, put the cash in, and it's kind of good because it's like you can set what you want to spend for the month and budget yourself accordingly. Excuse me. So it's just like things to think about. Now, if you happen to lose a card from the US, you do the same thing you would do. Call, cancel, check to make sure there's no weird things happening on your account. And you can actually get your card replaced here in Mexico and sent to you here to a valid address in Mexico that you trust, that'll get to you, because I've done that as well, directly from your bank, as long as you have a US address. It's an account that's already been established, and then you can have a card sent to you here in Mexico. I recently lost my ATM card, and I canceled it, and it took a little longer, but it did get here. I called my bank and I was just like, oh, I think I forgot my card in one of the machines. And they were like, oh, okay, we can send you a replacement. And I said, well, I'm in Mexico. And they said, no problem. I gave them my address, but I have my everything set up in the US. So just sharing that you can get that here, especially under like duress and emergency. So just talk to your bank, and if that comes up, make sure you let them know that, hey, I'm in this place, unless you know someone that can ship it, mail it to you, but then it's going to cost probably quite a bit. It costs a lot to send something kind of express mail from the US to Mexico, probably more than you want to spend. I think it's averaging around 50 to 75 US dollars for one of those like little letter envelopes. But if you need it, you need it. So in regard to like even obtaining a credit card here, I actually haven't tried to get an actual Mexican credit card, but it is possible. I'll probably do another video about that, but I will tell you about the experience that's coming and the experience that I had. So when I was at the bank recently, just the other day, I saw that they have like they call it a multi-currency card, and it's kind of like a prepaid, but it's a credit card. It's a Visa, I believe, or a MasterCard. I think it's a Visa symboled card, And what you can do, it operates as a credit card. So you can use this anywhere. Well, not anywhere. You can use it for travel. Basically, you can use it as you would a Visa, prepaid. It's here, but you put the money on and you can then get this card. So it's called, I think, CI Cash through my particular bank. So I'm going to sign up for that this week. You know, I asked them about it and it sounded very simple. They were like, oh yeah, all you have to do is deposit about 100 worth US dollars, and then you can get it and you can put in as much as you want. So if you're traveling anywhere and you want to use something like that, I think it kind of gives you a little bit more protection. Maybe it doesn't, I don't know, because I guess if you lose it, you know, it's not like I can't say they're not going to reimburse you. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, you know, you probably get a little bit more protection with a regular credit card for fraud and things like that. However, just saying, like, you know, if you just said, okay, I'm putting 1,000, you know, US dollars on this card for me to use if I go to the US or go to Canada. I think it works in Europe, countries in Europe. It probably works in countries in Asia. I just haven't asked those specific questions, but it is an option. And this works, I believe they'll give me this if I have an account with their bank. Again, I'll find out more details, but I like the idea of using that for now in Mexico. Like, let's say I needed to rent a car or something. I can use that abroad as well. If I arrive in the United States, I believe I would be able to easily use that in lieu of a credit card moving around. Rental cars probably not the best example because they're a little, you know, more strict and stringent. Maybe they want to see like a US driver's license that matches the name on your credit card. So that's probably not the best example. However, you can use this card for multiple things, and it's called a CI Cash card, and it's called a multi-currency, basically. Multi-currency meaning you put the money in and you can use it in different countries. So I'm going to get one of those so that I can use it here in Mexico, as opposed to whipping out one of my US cards for things. And I don't, you know, I've been lately trying not to use my cards at all, and just, you know, pay cash, because it is more of a cash society anyway. Now, I'm going to tell you about my actual getting a credit card experience. I'm going to make it as short as I can because it took a while that day. And I was just like, it was one of those situations that I was mentioning in my other video that drives me bonkers because, you know, and it's a learning curve and experience where I walk in and I think, oh, okay, this wasn't quick and easy, right? So again, I have to stop thinking like it's gonna be like this, but you don't know, because that's the only experience that I've had is going into a store and applying for a card, and it's either yay or nay, right? Because they check your credit right away. I've had nays way back in the day when, you know, I was younger and I was foolish with my stuff, and I wasn't sure what the process was. So I went into a local department store called Liverpool, which is very similar to it's not similar in its offerings, in my opinion, to like a Macy's or so, but it is the same idea. It's like a department store. And I went to one of the cashiers and I just said, hey, I'm interested in getting a Liverpool credit card. Is it possible? He asked me, yeah. And he seemed like he might get a commission, so he's very excited about helping me. And, you know, he pulled out the application, and I should have recorded this soon. I think I did record it afterwards, but for some reason it was like recorded choppy because there were a lot of interruptions in the process. But I just remember, like, I had to fill out like a paper form first, and then he put everything in his system, what he could, and then he took a copy, or had my my residency card, and he used that as well. And then they were asking me where I lived, so I showed them a screenshot of my address, but I think they wanted a utility bill as well for this in the end. And I think I might have had one, I don't remember. But then following that, we went to the back, kind of like the credit department, and he went into an office, and I sat and I was waiting and I was waiting. And I remember I had like Ziggs in the car, my dog. The windows were down. It wasn't a hot day, parked in the shade, because I thought it was going to be like, 10 minutes or 15. I don't know why. Why did I think this? I have no idea. Stupid. So I'm sitting there, and then I'm like, okay, this is going to take a while. So I said to them, can I bring my dog in? They were cool with that. So I went inside. I went and got Ziggy, brought him back, sitting down in this little department, sitting, and then he came back out. They wanted something else from me, I think like another form of ID or something. So I gave them that. I had like my Mexican driver's license, which, to be honest with you, it does not hold the same weight nor value as a license in the US, because your license in the US and your social are really like tied together, and that's how people get really good companies get good insight on whether or not you're going to pay your stuff or whatever. So I pulled that out, gave it to them, and I kind of chuckled because I thought, I can't even use my license to take money out of my Mexican bank account. Okay, that's how much this doesn't hold any weight in this regard. But I gave it to him anyway. And then that paperwork then got passed on to someone else, and she had to kind of input. And again, it's that same idea that I mentioned earlier with the bank, where only this one person does this, and then this other person does this, and then this other person does that. And it was just, and I mean, I think it really has a lot to do with fraud prevention, which is perfectly fine with me, but it's definitely a slower process. So this other person, this now third person, kind of was telling me, okay, you have to download the app for the store to your phone. So it's kind of like legitimizing that I'm actually the person applying for this card. And then they're going to send me a code to activate. And then it wasn't working because I was like knee deep in the store and the internet wasn't working. And I was just like, oh my God, this is taking forever. And at this point, we're like literally about an hour later. And I kept thinking like, why did I even bother, right? But I feel like these are all the little things that I have to kind of go through, because I live here now, and I feel like little by little, I want to be more established in this country with things like that. I want, I'm not going to forever hang on to the legs of the US. There are clear benefits to having certain things in the US, but I also want to have those same things here. And I had never really thought about trying to get a store credit card, because I don't care for Liverpool. But I was told at my bank, if I wanted to apply for an actual non-secure credit card, that I had to start with a store credit card. And I thought, okay, with some time, I want to establish credit here, because who knows, in the future, maybe I want to buy a car or something. And I think if you have that and you're a permanent resident, at some point in the future, you can get financed for a vehicle or I don't know, whatever else. And I just never really thought about that. So I'm going through these steps and I'm sharing them with you, that they are possible, but here are some of the challenges and here's what you have to do. So long story short, I get through all the steps, and then I think I left, came to my house because the internet just wasn't working, finished downloading the app, got everything going, and then I had to go back to the store. And it was pretty hilarious because when it was all said and done, I would say I invested at least 2.5 hours for them to give me $200 in credit. That's it. I was like, okay. And I'm saying that clearly, they don't check credit here, so they're going to start you off with like little drops in the bucket. I don't really care because I don't shop at that store. I only got the card because I'm hoping that I can, little by little establish my relevancy in this regard in Mexico. So if I need something bigger in the future, that's all set. And I'm not like, 5 years from now, oh crap, I really need a car. And oh, I have zero credit. It's like I don't exist in Mexico. So that's more the end goal. But it was pretty hilarious because when I saw them write, because I had no idea, they didn't say, well, you've been approved for whatever. They were just showing me the amount and at the end, and I said 4,000 pesos, like, okay, that's like 200 US dollars, and now maybe even less, worth less. And I laughed so hard because it just took such a long time, and I thought, this is another one of those scenarios that you just got to be patient with, and it is what it is. And of course, you build your credit from there. They were like, if you pay on time, you do this, da, da, da. Over time you'll earn more. And I said, okay, that's fine, no problem. So I went and I bought something right away because it was around Christmas time for Micah. So just like a little baseball hat or so. And I think I bought like some clippers. I haven't really bought a lot of things, but I get like little things that I would just pay cash for. But I'm like, okay, use the card and then go pay the bill, right? And the store has everything. You can get like appliances, and you can pay on credit like per month. You can get furniture, you can get clothes, jewelry, perfume, stuff for your face, blah, 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 blah. You can get it if you have the credit. I could only get $180, $190 dollars worth of stuff at one time, and then I got to pay it off, and then, but I don't know, it might have gone up since, I don't know, I haven't checked. But that was that process, which took a very long time. So as I keep saying to you, just take time to do things, to get things done, especially things like that. It takes a while. One of the big benefits I wanted to say with getting that card is, and I don't have the paper in front of me, but it came with a lot of benefits. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff, like medical, roadside assistance, like coupons to go to the movie theater, to get money off of food. It was just like a couple pages worth of benefits. You pay 140 or 150 pesos a month, which is about, right now, it's about 8 US dollars a month, and you have access to all these things. Now, again, that's probably like a whole nother thing that I need to look into a little bit, but because like things are out there and I don't know, because I don't fully understand, or I don't know what I'm looking at, I don't know how to access them. But it's like dental, medical, prescriptions, for your car. There was just a bunch of stuff, and I was just like, oh, you just pay 140. Oh, okay, and they were like, you get it free. I think it was free for the first 6 months, and then after 6 months you start to pay this amount. So not bad, right? So it was worth sitting there for that long period of time. And when you go to the store to pay for something, you have to enter a PIN like you would for a debit card. So I've used it maybe 3 or 4 times, I think. And you enter, whatever, and then you can pay right at the cash register. So it's kind of worth it to get it. I'll know more about the CI Cash card this coming week, because I'm going to go and deposit this amount to the card, so I have that as well. And it's just going to be backup. It's going to be more backup, but again, shifting over to establishing myself in that particular regard with finances here in Mexico. Having an RSC, that's something that I said earlier. If you own a home, you want to buy or sell something that's significant, you got to pay taxes on it, you need an ROC. Okay, that process we'll talk about in another video. It is free, but I had someone help me get that. So it's a process. And what else did I want to say? So in regard to getting money, paying bills, and things like that, I wanted to say that there are people who don't have accounts here, so you don't have to get a Mexican bank account. You can pay your rent in other ways. I have friends who tell me that they've paid through Wise, I believe. I think I used Wise to send money to myself once or twice, and then it started charging me these crazy fees, and I was just like, no way, I'll just write myself a check, right, and deposit it. And that's the reason why I like my method as it is today. There's also Zoom, which is a part of PayPal, but it's in Mexico and it's spelled XOOM. So it kind of operates the same. I think it's owned by PayPal. Again, I don't use this, but you can pay people in Mexican pesos using your PayPal. You have to change the currency. I've also done it for virtual assistants who are in the Philippines and things like that. So for those who have PayPal, that's also an option. You can also, transfer money from the US. Let's say you have an emergency to a Mexican bank account. It costs money that I don't want to pay. It's like the last time I tried or talked about it, when I first moved here, I thought I'm just going to transfer money to my Mexican bank account from the US. And international transfers are like $40 US, at least they were at the time. You don't want to do that. Like, that's ridiculous, right? Clearly, no one wants to pay $40 for a transaction unless you got it like that. So there are ways. And then the other part that I just kind of within the last year finally, did is Charles Schwab has been really a blessing. I had several friends tell me about it, but I didn't really take advantage of opening an account with them because I already had my little processes of how I get my money, and it was working just fine. But I realized, you know what? Why not have this account if I need to withdraw money and I don't want to deposit a check into my Mexican account, because sometimes doing that might take a little bit of time. And I can just withdraw. It's a lot faster. So I did everything online. For those who don't know, those who don't have a Charles Schwab account, they will reimburse you for all your foreign transaction fees every month. They don't do it on the spot. They kind of calculate what it is, and then you'll see there's a reimbursement for that. So whatever fees you pay to the local bank and then pretty much not to them, they will reimburse you for that. So for me, that's like the best other option if you're not using a credit card that does not charge foreign transaction fees. I don't know if there are other accounts or banks out there that do this. If there are, feel free to share it in the comments. But they do it, right? And if by now you have not subscribed, please hit the subscribe and like this video, smash that button, and also the notification bell if you're interested in getting any kind of, more information from my channel. If you enjoy my content, at least you'll get a notification when I upload a new video, and I'm on every Wednesday live talking about various things about San Miguel and my life here in Mexico. Love it here. Okay, so back to what I was saying. Charles Schwab. Basically with Charles Schwab, I really love having that account. It was easy to set it up. They have brokerage accounts, they have checking, and I think there's also savings. You can go online and do it as long as you have a US address, a social security, then you clearly can open an account with them, and it's worth having that card. I use that card about as often as I use my local card. So this is kind of the reason why I want to get this CI cash card, because I kind of just want to say, okay, this is what I have. And it's more for budgeting reasons. This is what I have for this month, and then it kind of will help, as opposed to kind of freely pulling money out of the ATM machine and being like, yeah, buddy, woo. Anyway, those are the things that I wanted to share. That can be a little cumbersome. They have a lot of larger banks. I have some notes here, that's why I'm looking down. In Mexico that are not Cibanco, as I mentioned before. There's BBVA, Bancomer, there's Santander Mexican, there's Bank Norte, several others, and then there's Cibanco, which I really love because of the fact that I can put in a check and they don't charge a lot. One of the things that people say is with, let's see, Mexican banks offer a wide range of financial products and services, including savings and checking accounts, credit cards, loans, and mortgages. You're going to get a way higher interest rate on those things. So I just want to kind of like share that with you. If you went out to look for a mortgage, it's very different here. You know, the interest rate's going to be pretty high. And there are other ways around that in terms of getting homes and stuff like that, but that's for a whole other person and a whole other topic. If you look through my lives, you'll see that I had a conversation with Maru, who is a local realtor, has lived in San Miguel for I think more than 30 years, and she's from Mexico City. She can have and provide you with a lot of details about buying a home or renting in Mexico, maybe even obtaining a mortgage, things like that. But there are banks that will help you with that. So I think I covered what I wanted to. You know, the 800 number is pretty efficient. Overall, I've had great experiences. I do have the app for me to be able to bank as well online. I only use it to check my balance, and that's just because I'm a little intimidated by the language. Even though I understand what it is, I still am kind of like, oh, I don't want to do something wrong and then have to go back and fix it later. The in-bank help is pretty, like I said, you can go in the bank and you end up spending like a long time in there talking to people and stuff like that. They're pretty friendly in general. Sometimes people will just kind of like, you know, it takes a while to get their attention because they're just doing their own thing. But overall, I feel like here in San Miguel, the bank that I work with, the folks are very helpful and willing to kind of, you know, walk you through a lot of the steps. And I would say the biggest reason that is because they're used to working with foreigners, and they kind of function, I think, more for the foreigner purpose, because every time I go there, I feel like I see more of us than the locals. I see a lot of the locals at some of the other banks I mentioned, and I think some of those other banks don't offer the check deposit thing. They probably would be like, what are you talking about? Again, there's a lot of ways to transfer money online, to pay things online. There's Wise. I don't use it. You know, if people want to pay you or send you money, it's always, in my opinion, good to keep something active if you can in the United States. I would not recommend necessarily, you know, putting your life savings down here in an account, you know, unless you're buying a house. And if you are buying a house, just make sure, you know, you're working with some very trustworthy, experienced people on transferring those big lump sums of money to pay for your home and things like that. Okay, so again, I'm Michelle for Expat Life Mexico. I talk about everything SMA, San Miguel de Allende, here in central Mexico. I have lived here since 2018. It is my pleasure to get on here and chit chat to you about my experiences here. Again, a lot of these are my personal experiences. It's not dictating what everyone goes through. It's not dictating how other people, you know, are supposed to, I guess, experience these things. I'm just sharing with you the things that I go through, have gone through, what's coming, and it's just my joy to talk about this country because I love living here, and I've met some very phenomenal people. I've also run into some very frustrating situations, and hence this is what I'm sharing with you, so you're better prepared, even if it's just an emotional, you know, got that that strength in my mind up so that I can, yeah, so that I can deal with whatever the day brings. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel and you watched this whole video, please hit the like button. Also know that I provide relocation strategy sessions at expatlifemexico.com. You can find all my details below. Feel free to buy me a coffee. And also be sure to join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central, Okay, right now, as of March 12th, we are 2 hours behind because this year, as of this year, Mexico has decided we are not going to be springing forward on our clocks. So we're going to be 2 hours behind until November. So it's going to be a little awkward. And then I think 1 hour ahead for people on the West Coast, I believe. And I don't know what's happening in the central time zone in the United States versus here. I guess I'll figure it out. And then with the Eastern Standard Time Zone, you're going to be 2 hours. So right now it's 3:40 for me, it's 5:40 for you. Okay, so if you're going to join me on Wednesday night, just know that it's going to be 9 p.m. your time. You can always watch me on a replay. I'm not going to move that time because my schedule does not dictate that I can do that. And yeah, if I find that I need to, I'll consider doing it. But join me on Wednesdays. You can ask questions about, moving to San Miguel. There's a lot of really important, pertinent information there. And it's live. It's on my channel. If for some reason you missed a link, you just got to go to the channel, hit that notification bell, and it will send you an email every time that I upload or that I'm on, and you can get on and join the conversation. It's called Wine Down Wednesday, so feel free to bring a glass of wine or bring your favorite drink or just bring some water, whatever it is you want to do, right? We have people that come on and have really great, valid things and questions that they ask that can also help others who might not have thought of something. So that's what I'm here for, folks. And we also do relocation tours and other experiences here in San Miguel. You can find those at casaelm.com, CASAELM for expatlifemexico.com. And there you'll see just all the cool stuff that we have going on. Our relocation tours really help people get the most in-depth information about moving to Mexico. It's a whole week filled with just stuff that's good for you. Okay, so if you're serious about coming to Mexico, that's a great place to start. Actually, the best place to start would be with a relocation strategy session with me. I spend an hour talking to you about Mexico, SMA. Your questions are going to get answered, plus you get resources. And then if you say, you know what, this sounds great to me, I want to try on one of these tours, or I just want to go on a tour because I want to see what San Miguel is like, this is a great opportunity for you to join us, because when you do that, it gives you a good feel for what it feels like to live here. We integrate you into the community. You get to meet other expats. You get to speak to experts like Sonia Diaz for immigration. You get to speak to Jorge, who does our neighborhood tours. You get to speak to and meet. You get to speak to and meet Maru, all of these folks who will pick you up and take you to all these amazing things that you want to know about real estate. You want to see houses, you want to see the inside, you want to see what Central is. It's just one full week of just amazingness, if that's a word. Anyway, thanks so much. This is Michelle for Expat Life Mexico, and don't forget to stay tuned to my channel. There's always info here. All right, ciao.